Vern Gagne's All-Star Wrestling goes coast to coast and continent to continent. The greatest wrestlers in the world.
He may be an apprentice carpenter, but I guarantee you he is a seasoned ring veteran.
I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids.
I'm talking to you.
They're scared that Hulkamania's still running wild. Oh, yeah. I got a big fat wife and 9 kids at home, and I gotta feed them.
And take a look at Jesse the Body in real life.
Open your hand once if you would.
You want to see it?
This is absolutely unbelievable. Totally, completely out of control.
He's coming in over the top. Hey! Look out!
Welcome into AWA Unleashed. We are the preeminent #1 podcast dedicated to telling the There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go.
Boy.
There we go.
Hold on. I'm going back to bed.
Ladies and gentlemen, look what you got to look forward to in 2024.
That was the Rocky Mountain Thunder of show intros.
That was good. I love it. I'm like, you know what? How can I screw this up at the beginning? I'm like, oh, there we go.
Hi, Chris. Welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes. Oh, my God.
Not the preeminent open, you guys.
It's got to get better from here, doesn't it?
It is the Rocky Mountain Thunder and the Whitewater. Yes. So what's going on?
Well, nothing. Now that we're all thrown off our game.
No shit.
Were we ever on our game?
Never.
Oh my gosh. We're going to have some fun today, guys. We're coming upon show 100, and I'm going to keep my hands away from that. I don't know how much of the intro got out there. Probably not any. We should probably just start the show over, but we're not going to because I'm too lazy to hit the end recording and restart it. Professionals would restart the show, not me. It's live podcasting / recorded podcasting. It's a
Good night,
Q&A.
everybody.
No, too much goofing. I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's a Q&A today, guys. We're at show number 98, and what we've decided is we're going to do 98, 99. We're going to do best bleeders in AWA history.
There we go, and there were a lot of them.
Yep.
There were.
Yep. Mad Dog, he's already had his show. He'll maybe, we'll get back to him here. He's part of the Q&A here. But you guys, show number 100 is going to be at the beginning of 2024. We're going to take a couple weeks off. I'm going to figure out how to work a damn microphone and a, headphone. So I'm going to figure out the technical side of it because apparently I'm going backwards. But we're going to take a couple weeks off just to let you guys know in advance. So we're going to take a couple weeks off the beginning of 2024. We've got some things that we're working on. If you have not followed the podcast, which I'm sure a lot of you here, you have, subscribe on the YouTube channel, AWA Unleashed. I know we get a lot of people that will just watch and kind of do it casually. If you guys can, subscribe to the YouTube channel or, Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. We've got some things we've got coming up, and it's a lot of paperwork. Let's just say that there's a lot of technical, stuff we have to take care of. And I know it's just very ambiguous, but once we get all of that stuff finalized and we get the approval, I think you guys are really going to like 2024 because we've got some things that I think you guys have been asking for, and we're trying to get it all lined up. Is that fair to say?
More than fair to say, and we're going to do it because you know what? We've got you at the helm.
Where's my white flag? Hi, Chris.
Okay, let's get to some Q&A, shall we?
3 minutes remaining.
Hey, we talked about the Team Challenge series. This should cheer everybody up. I put on the sheet there, guys, some of the names that people had come up with for our team names for the Team Challenge series. You guys want to read those? Because I've done a lot of the talking. Do you want me to read them to you guys and you guys react?
You read them. Read them.
Okay. So apparently we've had, and I think it was actually brought up to us by Matt Kessling. And he's like, hey, so random thought, if the AWA Unleashed podcast were to do the Team Challenge series, what would the team names be? Silly or serious? I think right now mine would be Tubbs Incompetent Doofuses. I would put that first. But first of all, from Mike Moran, he put Tubbs Taints, Mixed Manscapers, and Joe's Polish Sausages.
Wow.
Mike, if you're going to make the insinuation of Polish sausages, at least say Polska kielbasas. Just saying.
Yeah. You tell a guy who wears a mask and has a noose, tell him what to do.
I did.
I know you did. Yeah, man.
Back
you
in the day and now.
You like to talk a lot of shit to people with masks between Barry Darsaw and Mike Moran, man. You like to. Good luck to you. Hey,
I am the heel of AWA Unleashed.
Bill Klein had Mixed Cat House, Polish Joe's K's, and Tubbs Body by Pizza. Okay, I like that.
Okay.
Kevin Lucklow had Butter Tubbs, Polish Bros, and the Karch Bridgers. I'm not sure what the Bridgers is. Is that
Stone Karch Bridgers?
Oh,
as in the Stone Arch Bridge in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Very clever. Okay.
Very clever. Yep.
Okay, I like this. Mario Salas had Karch's Buffet Busters, Joel's Polishers, and Tubbs's Soda Stickers. The Buffet Busters gets me on that one. And
I think it's Joe's Polishers instead of Polishers, but that's,
Polisher. See, I didn't want to go that route. But okay.
I know Salas, and I know that's what he meant.
Okay. See, I'm trying to be nice. You're taking it in a direction I don't think it's meant to go, or maybe it's supposed to go in that. I'm trying to keep it clean, guys. Believe it or not, I don't think like that.
Go ahead.
Okay. From Brian Huff, Mixed Marauders, Joe's Big Nipple Knights, and Tubbs Tornadoes. I like the Big Nipple Knights. Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
And then finally, we had a Dream Team Challenge tag match only. Karch's Cowboys with Lands and Mulligan versus the Polish Princes, Ivan and Scott Plutsky, and Tubbs's Treasures, Adrian Street and Adrian Adonis.
Wow.
We had some really good. And if you guys have like an idea for the Team Challenge series thing, I didn't even think about it. Yeah, put it in the YouTube comments or put it on Facebook or send it to us. That's kind of cool.
All three people that are left watching this show, please do that for us.
Yeah.
And all three people that are watching the show are on the podcast right now.
Too much clowning.
Too much clowning. Well, that was a legit, but those were such good suggestions. I wanted to get them in.
Absolutely. And we appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, the feedback is great, you guys. Whether it's on the fan page or whatnot. So, all right, let's get to the Q&A because we got about 16 of them here, and we're going to buzz through. You guys ready?
Ready to go.
Let's do it.
All right. This first one's for you, Joe, and also Mick from Clint Ash. Knowing the disdain for Buck Zumhoff, have to ask both of you because you worked with him. Was there ever any suspicion with what he was doing away from the ring?
You want to kick it off there, pal?
I don't know into how much detail I should go. The short answer, yes. I honestly, I don't know how far or how much time this thing deserves. But yes, those signs, I verbally heard those signs from his mouth in about 1986.
I was lucky enough not to be party to that directly from him. I didn't actually work with Buck until after I was out of the AWA. I had one Saturday night at ringside. We went to the prison in Stillwater, Minnesota, where Buck was in for the first time, and we did a house show in the prison. I want to say that was 88 or 89, I actually worked for Buck. I did some of his independent shows into the 1990s. There were always rumors, but it was kind of like, ha ha ha, and nobody was really taking it seriously. What we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, can be Googled online. We don't have to go into detail, but there were rumors, and unfortunately, those rumors were substantiated and then some to the 100th degree, and that's about enough of that.
He's where he deserves to be.
Yep, and that will probably be the only picture that we ever show Buck Zumhofe on the podcast. But it felt like it was a serious enough question with that we wanted to kind of, it's the reality of the situation that it's a very disturbing situation. Like you said, he's right where he deserves to be. For you, Joe, from David Mulholland, is he correct that Curtis Hughes was a part of the Team Challenge series? And do you remember working with him?
Yes and yes. Yeah. Kurt, obviously very young in the business. He came up through the St. Louis, Kansas City, the mid-America area. And, I could see that, this kid could do something in the business. He had enough talent behind him. He was green, but worked his way up to the top. And I had no problems with him whatsoever. Curtis was great to work with. Nice guy.
Very nice guy. I worked with him in the AWF for a little while, of course, known as Mr. Hughes on occasion. I agree with you, Joe. Talented guy, very, very pleasant to be around.
And when you guys are talking about green in the business, it seems like a lot of that happened during that era of the AWA, where you had a lot of guys that had a lot of talent, but they were just very, very young in their careers and really used that as a stepping stone because there was no other choice.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's get to the next one here for you, Mick, from Stacy Manderville. Thanks to your group for providing these great memories up until the open. Is Butcher Vachon still with us?
God bless his heart. Butcher Vachon is still with us. I believe he is living in Vermont. He posts on Facebook and he acknowledges the fact that age and frailties are catching up with him. I don't know how old Butcher is. He's got to be pushing 90. I would guess upper 80s, 90 years old. Just a terrific guy. And I love this picture. That goes back actually to the late 1950s. Before he was Butcher Vachon, he was Nikolai Zolotov. And he wrestled here in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area back then. Just a tremendous, tremendous guy. Nothing but respect for Butcher Vachon. But yeah, he's still alive and kicking. God bless him.
The big dog. The bigger of the two.
Big man, yes.
This is for all of us from Ted Yates, diehard old school fan here. Question is about cage matches. Why was there hardly ever any blood spilled in cage matches you see in WWE? Back in the day, you always saw lots of red in the AWA cage. That is a good question because you can't have a PG-13 product and have a cage match. Those two, they do not go hand in hand. So I feel like that's a really good question.
Chris, you can have the cage match, you just can't bleed. And I think
that makes sense.
Yeah, that is a glaring distinction between nowadays and back in the AWA days, or any promotion for that matter. AEW certainly has more than their share of blood. I love this picture. There is your prototypical Mad Dog Vachon doing a promo for a cage match with Mean Gene, Incredulous in the background. You hit the nail on the head. When the WWE went to a PG-13 format, they opted to get rid of the blood. I believe that still holds today. If you see blood on a WWE show, it's by accident, or as they say in the business, it's the hard way. No blading, anything like that. And coincidentally, if I remember right, Linda McMahon was simultaneously running for some kind of a political position at the time. and WWE thought it would be best if they toned down the product a little bit. You know, it's so glaring. You see guys get their heads run into a cage in WWE and nobody bleeds. In the AWA days or NWA, as soon as a guy touched that steel, he was cut wide open. So that's it in a nutshell. And maybe it'll go back to where it was. If you want blood, the AEW will give you buckets of it.
Yeah, I mean, I from a business perspective, I get why the WWE does it. However, so much of old school wrestling has been, shall I say, bastardized,
watered down.
Yeah, and the whole point of the cage match was that is the ultimate conclusion of an angle. Right. And growing up and going to the AWA matches and then later working them, when you knew that it was a cage match and it was booked inside that 12, 16-foot high steel cage, you knew there was going to be blood. The promos leading into it called for it to be blood. How the hell could you have a cage match with Mad Dog Vachon and Crusher without blood? You couldn't.
You couldn't.
And you shouldn't.
And you want a definitive winner, right? It's like if you've got somebody, if you beat down your opponent, then you are definitively the better competitor. You're the, so to me, it's a clear winner and loser. I feel like it's that simple when you're talking about these big time blow off matches.
No question about it, Chris. And also it was a pinfall in the middle of the ring. 1, 2, 3. That ended the cage match. It wasn't escape through the door or climb up and try to get out and bail out.
Yeah.
It was mano a mano and lots of blood, and the best man won, and those were the glory days.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of that first one to climb out of the cage. And it's like, so you're a chicken shit and you're running away.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a cage match where they both get in, the bell rings, and somebody just walks right out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, great booking, right? Nobody gets hurt.
No blood, no match.
No, hey, ding, ding, ding.
There we go.
Hey, for you, Mick, from Jeff Miller, he understands that early in his career, Ric Flair was a huge Dusty Rhodes fan, was going to claim he was related to him. Any truth to this?
Absolute truth. When Rick got into the business, this was a time when Dusty Rhodes and Dick Murdoch were doing extremely well in the AWA area. And Ric Flair was a huge Dusty Rhodes fan, and he proposed the idea not only to Vern Gagne, but also, I believe, to Dusty himself. And he said, I want to portray myself as a cousin of Dusty Rhodes, and I want to be Ramblin' Ricky Rhodes. And both Vern and Dusty said, no, be yourself, be Ric Flair, create a career for yourself, which, in retrospect, it turned out very well. But look at that. What a great picture that is. That's Dusty looking his only Dusty cat on the left, and that is Ramblin' Ricky Rhodes, Ric Flair in the middle, and then, of course, Dick Murdoch. And that was the Nature Boy's idea. He was built like Dusty in the sense that he was about 300 pounds plus. And he just thought this would be a great idea to springboard his career. But Dusty and Vern put the ixnay to it. Wow. There you go.
Didn't Dusty, his skull, didn't he look like that one Muppet that had the really long face, who's got that big frown?
Beaker?
You know which one I'm talking about? No, not Beaker. I'll have to see. I don't even have a picture of it, but I was just looking at it because you look at the very left, right? He's got that frown. It's like, there's that
Dusty's
Muppet.
Got that. I just had that Taco Bell expression on his face there.
See, I'll find it. I will find it. See, I should have been better prepared, but once my mic went out, pretty much everything just went to hell in a handbasket. For you, for Joe from Ken Adelman, was the Raging Bull Manny Fernandez. What was he like to work with? He remembers his AWA feud with Wahoo.
Manny came into the AWA, I believe it was the late 87-ish, maybe 80. That would have been 87, 88. he came in to continue the feud with Wahoo McDaniel. They had done a long run in the NWA, and Wahoo was up here. Manny followed up. From an office perspective, it was another attempt at trying to sell some tickets. Sadly, I don't know that it did much, but as far as Manny himself, just a true pro. When that light went on and he was in front of the camera, Manny could cut a promo like few others could. Never had any issues with him in the locker room, on interview days or anything. Just a pro, and always kind to me. I don't have a bad thing to say about the Raging Bull.
Manny was a great guy, and you said it, Joe. They carried the feud with Wahoo into the AWA area, and you talk about blood. You know, you had plenty of blood when Manny and Wahoo went at it, and that picture was from Cauliflower Alley Club many, many years ago. But a great professional, absolutely. Very a tough guy, really a tough guy, Manny Fernandez.
Yes.
This is for you guys from Randy Kitzman. Any idea what happened to the tag team known as the Terminators?
Very, very interesting question. The Terminators, the first time I had contact with them, it was actually Dan Rignati, Terminator Riggs, and John Voight, who wrestled as Terminator Crow back in the PWA, Eddie Sharkey days. John Voight has since passed away, unfortunately, had kind of a rocky life. That on the left is Doug Fisher, who became Terminator Wolf and teamed up not only in the PWA with Rignati, but also in the AWA towards the end of the run. They actually had wrestled, I believe it was Voight and Rignati wrestled in the Memphis area, had a feud with Jerry Lawler in some tag team matches. So they've been around the block, both of them. And Dan Rignati, the Terminator, Terminator Riggs, has expressed an interest in being on our podcast. And I think that would be a great, great episode.
Nice. Yeah, they weren't in the AWA for very long. I think they might have made one or two shots, and that was about it.
Thanks for the question, Randy Kitzman.
Yeah.
All right, this one is for you, Mick, from Quinn Jacobson. He's heard a few times about an incident with Vern Gagne and Chavo Guerrero Sr. at Cauliflower Alley Club that could have turned very nasty. Were you there, Mick? And if so, can you explain?
I was there, and it was very ugly. This Vern was coming into Las Vegas to get an award at Cauliflower Alley Club. And it was at a time where, sadly, Vern was already starting to be a little bit touched upstairs. And, there was some concern about the family sending Vern to Las Vegas, under those circumstances. But they did. And with the help of my friend Dale Spear, who kind of directed Vern from the airport to the hotel, Vern managed to navigate fairly well over the weekend. The situation with Chavo Guerrero, I remember this so vividly. Everybody is in the hospitality room. Everybody's kind of, having a good time. And all of a sudden, Chavo, who had been imbibing more than a little bit, went up to Vern and confronted Vern about his payoff or lack thereof from Super Clash 3, which, of course, at that point was, 15, 16, 17 years earlier. And Vern, not only because of the state that he was in, but also legitimately with all the people he's dealt with, he said to Chavo Guerrero, I don't know you. Who are you? Well, this agitated Chavo even more. And he started berating Vern. And Nick Bockwinkel and Red Bastien and Rick Renslow are off to the side, and they're kind of watching this a little bit because they don't want a real escalation. And Chavo at one point picks up a beer bottle off one of the banquet tables and starts approaching Vern. Well, security kind of jumped in and got him out of there. Vern, even at that point, probably would have stretched Chavo from here to Neptune. But it was a very ugly incident. And shortly after that, Dale Spear and I saw Chavo downstairs in the concession area, and he was pleading his case to one of the cashiers. at one of the food stands, and he was singing Viva La Raza as he walked out of the building, and that was the end of that. But it could have gotten really ugly really fast, but Vern legitimately did not remember him.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'd never heard that story before. Shame on you, Chavo.
Yeah, scary stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, if you know that somebody's in that state of mind, I just don't know why you would bring up something that is 17, 18 years old. I mean,
Chris,
can't you? Yeah,
There
yeah.
it
The
is.
alcohol,
There it is.
I mean, I hate that
That's
it's not
true.
an
No,
excuse, but that's the reality. I mean, would he have done
Yeah.
that if he wasn't sober? I don't think so. He obviously was thinking it, but alcohol, it's liquid courage.
Yeah.
Who hasn't done stupid shit when they've had too much to drink and come to regret it the next day?
It was
Yeah.
it was a very ugly, very tense situation, guys.
That's, it really is a shame that you kind of feel bad for Vernon, something like that, where he has no idea what's going on. This one is for me from Will Nesbitt. I know many fans have submitted a request for certain guests to be on the show. You stated that you try hard to line them up. Aside from logistics and being AWA connected, are there any criteria for who you would or would not have on the show? As a follow-up, are there any wrestlers that have flat out said no to appearing? There really aren't any criteria per se. We're usually pretty open to anybody that has a connection, or even like Jerry Lynn is a Minnesota connection, because we're based in the Twin Cities. And I know we've got a lot of people outside of the Twin Cities and, nationwide, worldwide even, that watch this podcast. So there aren't any criteria. There's nobody that we've said, no to. And there have only been nobody, I think, has particularly said no, guys. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I know that there's been one person that was about a week and a half ago, Mick, and I know you're talking, and I think, Joe, you know who I'm talking about as well, that basically put themselves in a light that said, I'm too busy to do it. Yeah. And believe me, this is somebody that if you Google them, you would have to look at a picture. They'd have to wear a name tag for people to know who they were, because it's not anybody that is of any particular relevance. It would be a filler guest. No offense to this filler guest. You're not that over as you think you are, but it's just so hard, guys, to let you. And again, I feel like I'm just being so ambiguous, because there are just certain requirements that have to be met with certain individuals. Shall we say that? But no, to answer it, nobody said no really, except for that one. And it's just a matter of working out particulars and paperwork and all that.
We've reached out to a lot of people, and 9 times out of 10, it has been a logistic situation or a scheduling situation.
Yes.
We can't make it.
And we do our best to reschedule, but sometimes things just don't happen the way that we want to. And that's why we have to pivot.
Yeah. And truly, and Chris and Joe, this, we're not going to beg anybody. We want them to be on the podcast if they have an AWA connection. If they show an inclination to go the other way and it's not of interest to them, that's fine. That's okay. We also, I think, have a little bit of a criteria in terms of content. And we've talked about this off camera.
Yes.
We don't want anybody coming on and bullshitting us, because you, the viewing public, and the listeners are pretty smart to what's going on. And your wrestling history, especially on an old school podcast like this. And if somebody's not going to come on and be honest with you, it makes us look bad. It makes them look bad. It makes you look stupid.
It puts everybody in a really uncomfortable situation, because it's like, when you know something is false, how do you call that out, or how do you point that out without being confrontational and making the other person defensive? I mean, it's a very delicate, it's a delicate dance.
It really is. And I know, Chris, you have had many people who have said, we've answered the questions here on the air. What about this guy? What about that guy? I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, nobody works harder than Chris to try to make these things happen. And sometimes it's a quick connection. Sometimes it's just dragged on and on and on. But rest assured, we take your suggestions to heart and do the best to follow up on them.
Yeah, and produce a weekly show that every once in a while might not start out the best way.
Wow. Oh, there he went.
Much better.
Oh,
Much.
he went faster. He went faster than the Wicked Witch in the trapdoor. There in the. Oh, there he is. Yeah, there you go.
Just remember, this is a powerful finger, Joe.
Yep, I know those.
Moving on.
All right. But yeah, no, we do. And let me say this one more time. Working in the radio business as well, there are people that it may take me 6 or 7 or 8 months before we get them to get on. Like, it takes time. It really, really does. So yeah, believe me, we're doing the very, very best that we can. This is from Ann Lynn Collins. She followed wrestling back to the 70s. Don't know if people realize all the incredible stars that Verne Gagne trained. If you could each pick one wrestler that was the overall best, who would it be?
Wow.
The list, it's so hard to pick just one. I'm going to go with mine first. And I'm kind of glad that we didn't all pick the same ones because I feel like it would be easy to do. But I'm going to go with the late, great Iron Sheik, a legit wrestler. The history is well known, like who he was and how he came in. And for Verne to take the natural athletic ability in the Olympic champion of Khosrow to turn him into this individual, I think is a remarkable transformation and speaks to the ability to get a legitimate badass like the Iron Sheik and help mold him what he was. Sounds kind of cliche, but that's my pick, guys.
Oh, good call.
There are so many that we could choose from. I'm not even going to start naming them because I don't know who Mick is going to do, but I'm going to go with Curt Hennig. Curt became Mr. Perfect, and when he did, it was the perfect gimmick, and I enjoyed it so much because I saw him grow from this pudgy kid who could barely cut a promo to a superstar. I was fortunate enough to see his ascension to the top of the business. And like I've said about Bobby Heenan before, the greatest overall all-time talent, I'm going to put Mr. Curt Hennig top 5, maybe even top 3, in my opinion, from being able to work, cut a promo, do commentary, just everything. Curt Hennig was perfect.
I totally agree with you, Joe, and believe me, it was really tough for me not to say Curt. The only thing that kind of held me back a little bit was in terms of longevity in the ring. And Curt was a little bit injury prone. He had to take some time off here and there. But certainly one of the greatest of all time. There's no question about it. My pick, and there were so many, my God, Verne trained so many, but Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who of course started here in the AWA, trained in his name, Richard Blood, Dick Blood, started out doing preliminary matches here in the AWA, and then of course went on to huge success in the Mid-Atlantic area and then into WWF, and then of course WCW, NWA. I don't know that there has been a better babyface, fluid, scientific wrestler that maintained momentum for 20 plus years like Ricky Steamboat. So that would be my pick. But again, my God, ladies and gentlemen, you go online and you look at the guys that Verne Gagne trained, not the least of which was Ric Flair. Absolutely stunning, the guys he brought into the business.
Yeah, throw in Sergeant Slaughter, throw in Playboy Buddy Rose. I mean,
didn't he train Larry too?
He did. He had a hand in training Larry.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the list is endless. I mean, Kent Patera, on and on and on. Verne Gagne, legendary. And so when people try to tarnish the legend of Verne Gagne, let's remember who the guys are that he brought into this business that you have supported all these years.
Yep, 100%. Vern deserves his flowers with that, no question. For you, Mick, from Reggie Bell Lewis, why do you think Chris Taylor didn't go further in the business when he arrived with so much hype?
I don't think that's a real difficult question to answer. There was a lot of hype when Chris was coming out of Iowa State University. 400-pound guy. I don't know that he lost too many matches in his lifetime as a collegiate wrestler. And look at that picture. That is Vern Gagne on the left, and there's Chris Taylor, second from the left, Jerry Lewis, and Andre the Giant, going back to the 1970s. Chris Taylor, a big man. I don't know that Chris ever really got professional wrestling. His character was so limited and so stilted because he was so big. And another side to that is that Chris's personality. He was such a mild-mannered guy for a guy his size, for a monster of a man, 400 plus pounds. And it didn't translate well into interviews and promos on television. And that, of course, is how much of the business is that, Joe? 80% before you even get into the ring. And Chris Taylor, of course, sadly passed away. He suffered an injury in ring and got phlebitis as a result and lost a lot of weight. I believe almost 200 pounds, and then sadly passed away. So when Chris first signed with the AWA, it was big news. He allegedly signed like a $400,000 contract, and he was going to be the next big star in wrestling. But, he had his moments in the AWA, but nothing spectacular.
Yeah, it was a very short run, too. I mean, it was maybe 2-3 years.
Yeah,
that's
not
about
very
it.
long at all. Yep.
Yeah.
And he debuted against Rene Goulet, who put him over at the Minneapolis Auditorium. Great guy, very nice fella, Chris Taylor. But sadly, the predictions and the anticipation just didn't pan out.
All right, let's get to the next one here, guys. This one's for you, Joe, from Art Winters. Like you, he was a big fan of the Crusher. His favorite tag team partner of his over the years was Red Bastien. How long were they AWA tag champs, and who was your favorite partner for the Crusher?
They were tag champs before me, so Mick might be better to answer that.
About 6 months is all.
Okay.
Yeah. And lost it to Bockwinkel and Stevens in 72. And of course, Red picked the Crusher as his tag team partner after Hercules Cortez died.
As far as who my favorite partner for Crusher was, Red's a tough one to pass up, but it's just too difficult to not say his cousin, and I'm doing the air quotes even though I'm not on camera, his cousin, Dick the Bruiser. I mean, they looked like they were relatives. They were built, they were about the same height. They had the same, barroom brawling style. I mean, it was Dick the Bruiser. I mean, it's a no-brainer for me to answer that one, but everybody has their own opinion.
I would agree with Dick the Bruiser. I don't know how you cannot, agree with that. And as you said, cousin, Dick the Bruiser. And
So it seemed like they're pretty much, when we did a show of them, it was Crusher and Bruiser. They were kind of a package deal.
Yeah, they absolutely were. And of course, Crusher teamed with Mad Dog Vachon for a while too. They buried the hatchet. Crusher found Mad Dog lurking in an alley up in Algeria or someplace, and Mad Dog came out and tried to bite him or something. But then they decided to team up as a tag team. But no matter who he was with, Crusher was legendary.
Wrestling logic.
There you go. That's right.
Hey, Mick, quick question for you on Bruiser. I believe, he had the real raspy voice.
Yes, he did.
He did. From what I remember, I think the story goes that he got hit in the throat during a football game.
I have heard that too. He played for the Packers, I know. And the injury to his throat was early on. I don't remember exactly how it was. But Bruiser had kind of that gravelly, almost like he sounded like he was underwater. He couldn't quite put the emphasis that Crusher could do in those promos. But yeah, I heard the same thing. Football injury gone wrong and messed up for the rest of his life, really.
Yeah, and Crusher carried them on the interviews.
He
Bruiser
sure
was, he was all right, but Crusher was just Crusher.
Great.
This one is for me from Alex Dunn. Despite what Joe Chupik did to alienate Barry Darsaw, smiley face, would it be a natural progression to see if we could land Bill Eadie on the podcast?
Oh,
Because he did have a run as the Masked Superstar, and to me, one of the most best and most versatile wrestlers of all time. We have not reached out to Bill Eadie, full disclosure. I mean, we've talked to him, but not like in a formal capacity. I would be perfectly fine with Bill Eadie because I know Bill Eadie's got stories, and I mean so many stories. So he's definitely on the list of individuals that I would love to look at getting on the show. No question.
Bring them on. I need to alienate both of them, apparently.
Yeah.
boy, would I like to see them demolish you. Speaking of
No pun
demolition,
intended.
Bill Eadie, what a consummate professional. When you talk about the greatest masked man ever in wrestling, you would have to say the Destroyer / Dr. X and Bill Eadie, the masked superstar. And if we could get Bill on the show, there he is under the hood as the masked superstar, one of the greatest of all time, no matter what territory he was in. The AWA was kind of a short-lived run back in the mid-1980s, but wouldn't that be a natural? And I know Chupik would come up with some way, somehow, there he is, there's Bill Eadie without the mask, to alienate, piss off, or otherwise really anger, frustrate, and alienate Bill Eadie. If anybody can do it, Choop's the guy.
You're all cretinous humanoids.
Yeah, you'd say you were masked, but you weren't a superstar.
Not even
Either that, or
close.
maybe you should stay masked. Okay.
I should.
Oh,
I got a face made for a audio podcast.
No, I'm talking. That's what you'd say to Bill. Tell Bill to stay
Oh,
masked.
no.
No. Of course
No.
not. You're
My alienation is unintentional, prick.
uh-huh.
Oh, I'm sorry.
just remember, I've got the magic finger.
You do, yeah.
Hey, for the crew from Kent Zachariason, tremendous show. Thank you very much, Kent. We appreciate that. Hopefully you still feel that way after this show. Can you tell me more about Lord Alfred Hayes in the AWA? My memories of him when he was kind of a comedic foil in the WWF. I feel like a lot of people, kind of like me, we don't know the pre-comedic foil is the perfect way to put it, Lord Alfred Hayes. What was he like before he was that, primetime wrestling goofball?
Even before he came to the AWA, Lord Al was a legend in England. I mean, that's legit. And I mentioned before that they called him Judo Al Hayes. He had a judo background. He was a great technical wrestler. And there's Lord Alfred in his prime. When he got to the AWA, of course, he came in as a heel that looked down his nose at all the commoners, from the Crusher to George Gadzuki and whoever else. Lord Alfred, from a technical standpoint, guys, he was so good. He teamed up with Roger Kirby in the Central States area. He was a technician, but then when he turned heel, he had that nastiness, that snobbishness to him. And then, of course, they turned to babyface before he left the AWA, and he wound up wrestling Bobby Heenan in a loser leave town match. And lo and behold, Lord Alfred Hayes did the job for Bobby Heenan. One of my all-time favorite people to work with. He had a laugh that would rock the heavens. And it's sad what happened to him when he went to WWF. I know he made a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question about that. And of course, I mentioned before, he was in a terrible hit and run auto accident up in the New England states. He was actually a pedestrian and got hit by a car. And they wound up taking 2 to 3 inches of spine vertebrae out of Lord Alfred Hayes. And that, yeah. So the last couple of years that we worked together, Alfred had a tough time navigating, but never lost that sense of humor. Love the guy.
Yeah, as the foil in the WWE, I gotta say, went against everything that he had done prior in the business in terms of how well he did it, but he did the comedic foil extremely well. I
Yeah.
mean, think of it, the WWE had Bobby Heenan and Lord Alfred Hayes on the air at the same time. How flippin' good is that?
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Yes. Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I mean, it seems like those that could be the most vicious or nasty villains could always turn out to have the most comedic side as well. Like you could flip it like two extremes. I
No
mean, I think
question
that just
about
shows how talented they were. And now that makes me want to go back and watch some early Lord Alfred stuff.
Yeah, if you can, even before he came to the AWA, of course, when he managed Don Jardine and he managed Bob Remus, the Super Destroyers, and just a tremendous talent.
All right, last one here, guys, and we'll wrap it up for 2023 in terms of the Q&A because we wanted to make sure that we cleaned out the entire queue, and hopefully everybody got their questions answered. We'll do another one later on, sometime 2024. We'll do a few. This is for you, Mick, from Barry Gold. You've been verbally assaulted by Chupik and Tubbs. Have you ever been physically? Wow. Have you ever been physically assaulted by a wrestler?
You mean besides a guy throwing his glasses at me at the announce table? Yes, I have. And I know you have and yes, I've been verbally assaulted by you, regardless of the deserved shit that you just said, Chupik. But yes, and I know, Chris, you have a picture of this absolutely malicious, vicious assault. Let's take a look at. There you go. There you go. That is Sodbuster Kenny J, who I thought was a nice guy. And Kenny J is delivering his famous sod grip to me. What bothers me the most about this picture is not so much the pain and the agony that I went through. And Kenny was shooting. He was putting that thumb in there pretty good. It's the fact that I have my fifth chin is being exposed in this photograph. I mean, Kenny has the thumb underneath the chin. Not talking about the Gagne sleeper, underneath the chin, and he's pushing up those various chins of mine. And I counted, and I don't want to do it now, don't want to, enhance the picture, but 5. Count them. There were 5 chins. So that to me was probably the most vicious assault I've had by a wrestler. My old buddy Kenny J.
But the important question, Mick.
Here we go.
Did he break the hold within the 5 count?
5 hours.
Well, I didn't say what the 5 related to.
He does have to. Yeah, he does have to 5. Yeah.
So it's all legal. It's all legal.
Kenny, and amazingly, nobody ran in to break up the hold. That's the thing that bothered me the most.
But see, let me say, Mick, that thankfully you had 5 chins, because if you only had 1 or 2 chins, like, it would have been done. Those extra chins served as protection.
I never looked at it that way, and
that's why you're still here.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Chris, now that I look at it that way, I don't give a shit. It still, was a horrible incident.
I don't.
And I thank you for trying, but Kenny J.
Very capable, Sodbuster Kenny J.
Yes, God love him.
All right, well, we got off to a little bit of a slow start and too much goofing around, so quit screwing around. Never. But we did finish. We got a few minutes left here, guys. Again, we do want to say thank you to everybody, as this is episode number 98. We got one more for the year 2023, which is like the best bleeders, or what are we doing next week, Mick? Something about...
it'll be the bleeders. It'll be the guys that spilled a little blood in the rings of the AWA. Okay.
All right. So we're going to do that. If you haven't, subscribe, rate, review, YouTube. That's where we get a lot of the, that's kind of the main algorithm. But Spotify, Google, iTunes, Apple Podcast, Apple Music, wherever you get your podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe, rate, review. 2024, we're close to finalizing some pretty big things. And it's so close, guys. 2024, I feel like if you guys have enjoyed the podcast so far, you guys are really going to enjoy what we've got coming up, because we've got things planned that we have never done before. We've got ideas that we're hoping to incorporate that will go well. And it's going to be a fantastic year if you want to support the podcast. Let me say that. If you want to be a part of it, we're going to grow this thing bigger and better.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, Chris, because we are going to make people more a part of it. I mean,
Yes.
There's going to be, some very tangible stuff that is going to get our viewers and our listeners involved. And hang tight. It's going to be a good ride in 2024.
I'm encouraged by what you said, that we're going to be entertaining. Nice change.
Who said entertaining?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just one of those voices in my head.
Yeah, I believe me. I've said a lot of things. I've never said anything entertaining or said the word entertaining.
Yeah, if you're here
At
for
all.
entertainment, go to a different podcast.
You have the trifecta of not entertaining right in front of you, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are. Yeah.
Yes. Not competent, not entertaining. Just so
Here.
We're just here. Why are you watching it? Because it's on the internet. Right?
So it's true.
Yes, so it's all true. Let's get to some shout outs here, guys, and then we'll wrap it up. Mick, why don't you go first?
I'm going to give a shout out to my dear friend Lenise Hennig, Kurt Hennig's widow, and she spawned some wonderful sons as well, including Hank and Joe. And Lenise is a dedicated listener of the podcast. I mean, she listens to every word, and God love her. She's a wonderful person, and shout out to Lenise.
Hopefully, she will still be listening after
No.
this.
She fell asleep.
Yeah, well, I don't blame her. I would too if I had to listen to this. Anyway, my shout out, and I keep going to the fact that I screwed up the beginning of the Open. Like, it just bothers me. So anybody
Don't
that's
worry
still
about
here-
Redo the whole show.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Starting
Ready?
3, 2, 1. Hey, my shout out is going to go to Arnold Old School on YouTube. No idea who he is, but that is the handle that he's using. And he's made some really fun comments on YouTube in terms of just supporting the podcast. So I don't know who you are. I don't know where you're from, but Arnold Old School on YouTube, thank you for chiming in, and always enjoy seeing your comments there. So that is my shout out. And there's a reason why I went second after Mick. Joe Chupik, the floor is yours.
Just before we went on the air with this episode, hopped on Facebook and saw a post that properly directed me to change my shout out this week. My shout out goes out to Will Bryan, Whippoorwill Bryan, as Larry Nelson gave him the nickname. Will and I got hired at the same time at the AWA, worked together for about 2.5, 3 years. And about 7-8 years ago, we were able to reconnect on Facebook, reconnect with Mike Shields, who was our direct boss at the AWA, and had just a fantastic thread talking about memories, stories that we had done during our time with the AWA. If it wasn't for Will Bryan, not Vern Gagne, not Kathy Gagne, but if it wasn't for Will Bryan, I would not have had my career in the AWA, in professional wrestling. I would not be on this podcast. I would not have directed hundreds of shows, done camera for hundreds of shows, edited tens of thousands of hours of professional wrestling if it wasn't for Will Bryan. Well, the post that I got or that I saw today was that Will, who my age, 58, Will might have been 59, sadly passed away yesterday. Will was a devout Iowa Hawkeye fan. After his time with the AWA, he went to Denver, moved down to Florida, and unfortunately experienced some strokes or some medical issues, I'll say, in recent years, and so ended up moving back home. And the medical issues were hereditary, sadly. But most sadly is that the reason that I had my career in the AWA, Will Bryan, has sadly gone up to that big ring in the sky, as they say. And I'm not going to do the 10 dings, but I'll just ask everybody, just whether you find me entertaining or not, whether you like me or not. Today is just a sad day. And in honor of Will, I'm doing a mental 10 bell tribute, 10 bell salute to him, to thank him for giving me this career in professional wrestling. So Will, thank you and rest in peace.